All right, so welcome to I don't know, deep dives with FTCHM.
We're gonna try something.
Pastor Chuck's Panera Talk.
Oh man, that's awesome. That's awesome. I don't know.
We're
just
still
here.
we're still working on the name, but we wanted to bring something to you during the week to talk more about what God's doing at the church. Maybe look at some things in a different way or a little deeper way than what we could on Sunday morning, and just kind of connect you to different things going on at the church. So that's kind of the point of these videos, or if you're listening to the audio, that's why we're doing this. We want to just help you just kind of know more about what's happening, what God's doing at First Baptist. So, did I miss anything there?
Well, we just want to celebrate.
Yeah.
We want to celebrate our community, what God's doing. There's so many things going on. And this is a way for us just to share with you and kind of get you in maybe a little bit deeper into what's going on at the church that you may not know about, that may not be happening in your world. And just to be able to know that God is at work. That's the whole idea here.
Yeah. So the first thing we want to talk about is just kind of how has God been moving recently at First Baptist? And I know you talk about the softball team and their great performance on Sunday mornings, but there's more going on there, right? There's more going on behind the scenes than just winning the Omega bracket.
The Omega, well, yeah, the Omega bracket. We were not in the top Alpha bracket. We were in the Omega bracket, but received a text from our coach Chad Mason from a guy on the team who's loosely connected to the church, and just he was thanking God for the opportunity to play, and just to have community and get ready, and one of the great things about, there's a couple facets to the softball team you may not know about. We have a great ministry with the other churches. We have a great reputation. We play to have fun. And we like winning, which it was nice to win, but we do that. Also, that text kind of spoke to the heart of our team. Guys like Dave Roxbury, who've been doing it for over a decade now. And we have a long history of softball, and this team is kind of another part of that history where we're able to pray with other teams, we're able to spend time with them, and just to see the camaraderie of I had a young man come out the other night who years ago had trouble with some issues with his daughter and being able to see her and just some stuff, and I walked across the right across home plate, and he goes, "Pastor Chuck," and he wasn't able to see his daughter at the point I had seen him before. And he came over to say, "I gotta show you somebody." And he came over to introduce me to his daughter for the first time. And that's happening all over the place with just the ministry we can have. My mechanics that work on my car, they're part of it. And just being able to leverage something that everybody likes. We did something like that the other night. It wasn't softball, but it was board prayer.
Yeah.
The board is a team. The board is called to work together as a team. And the other night we sat down for an hour and just gave our last meeting to the Lord. The meeting was Monday night. Incredible meeting. God moved. Just an awesome time together. But one of the things that came out of that meeting that was so encouraging to me is we have now committed to praying the Wednesday night before every board meeting.
They asked you, can we do this more often?
Yes. Yes.
That's I mean, I don't know how long you've been around church if you're watching this, listening, but that doesn't happen a lot. You don't have a lot of saying, "Hey, can we have more times to get together and do more?" But the board just wanted to pray because they understand our mission. They understand the point of if it's not about what we want, it's not about what the board wants, it's about tapping into what God wants for us and driving the church in that direction.
Building community. I mean, that's what God's doing, and we're seeing it all over the place.
Yeah, that's cool. We've seen it in children's ministry. Just I've been blown away. I have children, but children's ministry is a brand new endeavor for me. I can lead a ministry, but the nuts and bolts of what speaks to kids is a new avenue for me, and just working with the team that has been assembled has just been amazing, and watching the passions just kind of come to service. We use passion a lot, and we kind of mean anger. I'm talking about like the passion, like they're just so excited to use the way that God has created them and the gifts and talents to impact children and start to build that foundation of Christ in their life. And so it's just been really cool to see the team come together, and it's a very diverse team of ages and philosophies, but we all want the children's ministry to just succeed in reaching kids for Christ, and everybody's been so good working together, and just the commitment and willingness to step in and say, hey, we're helping, we want to make this great, and we want to really help these children come to know Christ. So that's been a really cool place for me to see God, and just in a much less deep way, the tubing trip. We talked about this Sunday, but it was just a lot of fun to get the teenagers out there to be silly, and to see the adults kayaking around with them, and that may be something we expand in the future, but just to watch the just to see kids being kids again, and doing things like that was really cool.
Well, the adults are funny because, I had adults come up to me Sunday and they say, you went rafting? I want to go rafting. Or, pizza and popsicles. There's a lot of jealousy there because people were like, wait a second, where's the pizza and popsicles for the adults?
If you feed them, they will come.
If you feed them, they will come. But, we are committed to building community, committed to, really working hard to provide opportunities, not just to not to come in and have everything just totally planned, but to give people time to interact, get to know each other, whether it's intergenerational stuff and things like that we're doing. Like the one thing with the outdoor worship that was so amazing this summer is it was a place where we saw all the generations come together.
Yeah, that was really cool.
And looking over and seeing, some of our older members, older people that are part of the church, praying the other night with some of the kids, and just I looked over a couple that they've raised their kids, they're all in college and stuff, and they're sitting down with two of the girls from the youth group just praying. And so there's a movement of God that's happening that's very evident.
Yep, that's so good. One of the things I noticed that whenever I speak somewhere, I only speak here. It's not like I'm a national speaker. Whenever I get the opportunity to speak, I walk away from it going, oh man, that would have been cool to say. And I wanted to ask you, you've preached 2 sermons on Jonah 1, and working through that. Is there anything that you've been thinking about since you've given those sermons that wasn't necessarily part of it? Like, is there anything you've been like, I've been thinking about this since then, I think this would be a cool way to spend some time for us to just kind of embrace this week?
Well, this series, Deep Grace, is one that, I preached through Jonah like 3 years ago, and I'm seeing all these different things that are going on, and sitting with a friend of mine, one of our life group leaders, and just having a great time with him as we discussed, and always get great insight from him. And he was saying, Chuck, one thing I've noticed in this first chapter is that God hurled the storm. They hurled their luggage. He was hurled. All this hurling's going on, and it's not a word we see in Scripture a lot. But it was just like he said. You know what? I thought about this. What is God? What has God hurled at you lately? What is if you're walking through a storm, we know that God is allowing us to walk through these trials. He's allowing us to walk through these tests and all these things, and really thinking about God's deep grace in the midst of the storm, and God's deep grace in the midst of disobedience at the beginning. Jonah was a prophet that was known. Jonah had been in the king's court. Jonah was a man who was following God's heart, and then one day he says no. And we can sit there in judgment, and Jonah's always kind of ragged out as a prophet, but Jonah said no and then started running the other way. We've always been there. We've been there. So the fact that God pursued him the way he did gives us that understanding of deep grace. And but you've been talking about him standing at the foot of the boat has really got to you.
Well, before we get to that, one of the things I wanted to talk, you just brought it up and it was in my mind, was sometimes I think when we talk about forgiveness on our end as humans, it's easier for us to forgive a unintentional act. Like if I unintentionally hurt you, you can forgive me, whereas I purposefully hurt you. And it kind of blows my mind that Jonah purposefully walked away from God and God still extended him grace. That's just a model of that forgiveness that God always gives for us and that we need to be doing. But I told Pastor Chuck the first week he started talking about this, and I'm like, why didn't Jonah jump? Like, he knew he was wrong, right? He knew the storm was his fault. He knew what was going on. He knew what was happening, and yet he didn't jump. And all I could come to was, I'd love to think that I would throw myself in and be like, yeah, I'm the problem. Let me just jump in and you guys will be fine. But I think it's a picture of our stubbornness when we don't want to do what God is asking us to do. When where God is leading us is so scary or too hard or makes us too anxious. You know, think about Jonah had to go to a city full of a big city like New York City and tell them all they're wrong. And it wasn't a people group they were exactly friends with. And he didn't want to do it, and he didn't want to do it so bad that he was going to wait until the absolute last moment to change his mind. He was hoping there was always going to be a way out. Always.
Well, that sounds familiar, doesn't it? It wasn't in his wheelhouse. You know, one thing that hit me in this study was that he's the only prophet that was called to another country.
Yeah.
You know, another place that was so evil. And God saw that, and God saw the people, and he had compassion for those people, and had so much. He was going to send Jonah, and then Jonah totally reacts differently, and we see that with the guys on the ship too, where they all of a sudden everything goes from little g gods to all of a sudden they're talking about Yahweh, the big G God, and there's this transformation that occurs. This is a great picture of our lives, and Jonah gives us a great picture. You know, these next 3 chapters are going to be very interesting as we dissect what God is teaching us, but really understanding his deep grace, how he continues to move. Jonah makes it to the end of the book. You know, that's one thing we can't take, that I look at and I go, wow, he actually made it to the end of these 4 chapters, because there's a point where you wonder if God would just go, I'm done. But no, God is never done with us if we're his children. And God is always seeking a way to connect with the sailors that are around us.
And even in the midst of our disobedience, God is still glorified, which is just crazy to me, because nothing else works out that way. But God,
our finite minds can't wrap around it.
I can't get my head around that. So just a couple things coming up here. We have Rally Day coming up September 12th, I believe, at Northampton Park. We're trying to grab a dunk booth and couple inflatables, and we have some food. That's a potluck, right? Like you bring your own food.
Bring your own food.
And kind of just have some fun getting together. It's kind of an extension of our outdoor worship time. We also, something that we started on Sunday at our last outdoor worship that we're going to continue, and if you're in a life group, we're going to be bringing this to you, is just trying to get people praying for each other in the body of Christ. And so Pastor found some ways to pray for back to school, and we're going to make that into a little flyer and put the kids' names on it, and just start handing them out to life groups and say, will you pray for this person, then try and connect with them. Teams, you want to talk about teams?
Well, Teams for Medical Mission. Now, one thing we've done, God has blessed us immensely in our fellowship fund. If you don't know what that is, that's a fund we have that we use when people are in need and things of that nature. And when there's a catastrophe around the world, we'll sometimes send money to a mission group that's working there. But we have an abundance there that we're trying to really be stewards of. And one thing we decided to do is take our fellowship fund offering that we take every week, the week we take communion. At the end of the service, we take that offering. You can do it online also. And we have allocated those funds to certain ministries, mission ministries, that we can send them that offering. So this month is Teams for Medical Missions. If you don't know what's going on with them, they're buying a house in Jamaica. You're probably very familiar with the ministry, but there's a house they're buying in Jamaica. I think they're $20,000 or $30,000 away from what they could buy the house for cash. So they're figuring out that. But we wanted to contribute that money to Teams so that we can assist in helping them buy the house. I know we've done some already, but we just want to give out of our abundance to them and be a part of that. So just pay attention. Every month there's going to be a different ministry that the Fellowship Fund is going to go to. And I'm excited about that because it gets us involved in the community, not only in, it's just going to be an awesome way to say, hey, we're here for you. We support you. We want to be here for you.
Yeah, it's really cool how God's been moving through through that offering and through what Teams is doing down there. So like we said at the beginning, this is just a way to kind of connect the church body and those maybe looking at the church to what is happening at FBCA. What it's not what we're doing, what God's doing. And we just want to try and tell some of those stories and maybe challenge us to think a little bit deeper, a little bit differently about the passages we encounter on a Sunday. And throughout the week, maybe we just encourage you to think about God's grace in the midst of our disobedience this week. And that's kind of been the reoccurring theme for me over the first chapter, is that God continues to give me opportunities, even though you know, I mess it up or I blow it or I don't want to do it or I do it because, in spite of, you know, without the best attitude. And we hope that's an encouragement to you that, you know, we're not perfect. You're going to, if you watch these or listen to these more, you'll figure out more of our personalities. And, you know, we're not perfect, but God still is gracious to us and allows us to be used by Him to make an impact for His kingdom. So we just wanted to say thank you for joining us on our inaugural
This is it. We're learning.
episode. And we'll see if we need to make changes. But thanks for joining us today, and have a great week.
All right. God bless you guys.